Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Olson with the National Tile Contractors Association. I want to thank you and welcome you to today's webinar. Today's webinar is titled Tile and Tile Setting Materials Green Products Certifications 101 and is sponsored and presented by MAPE Corporation. Before I introduce today's speaker, I want to remind you that during the webinar, you'll be muted. Please use the questions area on your computer to type in your questions, and we will answer those questions at the end of this presentation. If the audio on your computer is poor, call the number on the invite you were sent for this webinar and listen on your phone. As a reminder, all of our webinars are available to watch at any time on the NTCA YouTube channel shortly after the webinars are presented, giving you easier access to share and watch all current or past programs at your convenience. All right, here we go. Today's speaker, Brittany Storm, is the Sustainability Manager for MAPE Corporation. Her background as a sustainable building consultant and background in construction allow her to speak to audiences about both the big picture and technical aspects of a project. Brittany is a LEED accredited professional, AP with a BDNC and an IDNC. I don't know what that means, but it's a lot of letters. I'm sure Brittany can explain that. IDNC specialties as well as WELL AP and FitWell Ambassador. In addition, she is active on many sustainability committees. Welcome, Brittany.
Thank you, Jim, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining. This is the webinar titled Tile and Tile Setting Materials Green Product Certifications 101. For tile and tile setting materials, sustainability is becoming increasingly important. Sustainability is more than just a trend, it's become a core aspect on how products are designed and manufactured. This demand is being fueled by new and more stringent green building regulations, as well as growing consumer awareness of health and environmental concerns. Sustainability means different things to different people. Some look at sustainability from human health and wellness point of view, others from an environmental point of view, and majority look at both. There are green product certifications for all of these as well. Gone are the days when manufacturers simply provided a letter or a TDS sheet. Majority of green product certifications now require third-party testing or certification to show improvement in health and environmental sustainability. Today, we'll talk about different health and environmental green product certifications available for tile and tile setting materials. During this webinar, attendees will learn how tile and tile setting materials relate to sustainability, an overview of green building standards and certifications, and how tile and tile setting materials contribute, an overview of possible tile and tile setting materials green product certifications and attributes, and their contributions to green building standards and certifications. We'll also talk about how to read sustainability specifications and how to select green tile and tile setting materials. The construction industry has a significant impact on the environment. The industry accounts for 25 to 40% of the world's carbon emissions. Mining projects extract minerals needed for construction materials. Companies then transport these materials to different parts of the world. Both processes burn up fossil fuels, and the combustion of fossil fuels produces greenhouse gases. One of the biggest environmental problems related to infrastructure development is energy use. The global building sector consumes around 36% of the world's industry. This industry is depleting much needed natural resources. There's also studies that show construction is responsible for 50% of landfill waste, as well as air, water, and noise pollution and destruction of natural habitats. As the effect of climate change and other environmental issues become more pronounced, it's more important than ever to find ways to protect the environment. Fortunately for the construction industry, the same changes that protect the environment from harmful impacts of construction can also improve quality of construction products and boost profits. Like architects and designers, contractors and installers are in a position to influence how green or how sustainable a project can be. If contractors are working on a green building project, they have an even bigger role, as contractors are typically the ones who order materials for a project. So using the right materials could make the difference between getting a project certified or not. So if the right materials are not selected, a project team might be forced to take a different, possibly less sustainable path. Green building standards and certification systems establish environmental health and performance criteria for buildings, each with varying approaches. Sustainable design and construction gained popularity with the launch of the Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method. That's a mouthful. That stands for BREEAM, which is found in that bottom left corner there. In 2000, the US GBC, or US Green Building Council, introduced a similar program aimed at improving energy efficiency and environmental practices of buildings through the LEED Green Building Rating System. Other green building standards and certification systems also responded to the growing interest and demand for sustainable design and construction, including Green Globes. There's also Living Building Challenge, which is another popular green building certification program. It was developed around the same time. There are common standards related to building practices like ICC, the International Code Council. They have an International Green Construction Code also. They provide a comprehensive set of requirements intended for reducing negative impacts on the natural environment. There's also standards like the National Green Building Standard, or NGBS. And there are some that are state-specific green building standards, including California Green Building Standards, or Cal Green. And Florida has their own, Florida Green Building Coalition, and there's many more states that have their own green building standards. More recently, additional green building standards and certification systems have been developed to address other sustainability issues related to human health and well-being. In 2014, the WELL Building Standard was the first standard to focus solely on how a building impacts human health and wellness. Other certification systems, such as the Center for Active Design's FitWell standard, have followed in WELL's footsteps. There are many green building programs that have since launched supplementary programs as LEED. There are other programs that are included within USGBC in addition to LEED. There's ParkSmart, Sites, Living Building Challenge also has supplementary programs including CORE, Living Community Challenge, and many more. With the last year we've been having, you'd think there'd be a decrease in the demand for green products as large construction projects like hotels or commercial office buildings have slowed down. Plus, sustainability is typically the first thing out the window when it comes to budget, timelines, and general design and construction of the building. However, sustainability as it relates to indoor environmental qualities specifically, it's gained popularity over the last few years. Green building standards such as LEED or FitWell now have supplementary programs or credits designed to help project teams provide healthy spaces and to assist with pandemic planning and re-entry into the workspace. There are also several rating systems within each of these green building standards that we just talked about, as well as multiple active versions, each with varying and ever-changing requirements. For example, the latest version of LEED, there's version 4, and they have a beta updated version called 4.1 or V 4.1. LEED has shifted from existing guidelines of measuring things like recycled content of products, VOC content, and how far those products were extracted and manufactured. They're now evaluating a product's environmental impacts and its effect on human health. This means a green product chosen for a previous version of LEED may not contribute to the same amount of LEED credits it had in the past, and that's especially true for tile and tile setting materials. It's not uncommon to have projects that pursue multiple rating systems, which means juggling multiple rating systems at one time. So in this example here, a core and shell building, on the left you can see the exterior. The core and shell space pursued LEED version 3, and a commercial interior tenant decided to pursue LEED version 4 as well as WELL building standard. So again, juggling multiple rating systems and multiple material lists. So it's very important to note that what works for one green building certification system may not work for another. Oops. Fortunately, there are some synergies between varying green building standards and certification systems. Living building challenges imperatives, or that's what they call credits. Those address many issues that are found within LEED's credits or the WELL building standards credits and many more green building certification programs. This means that tile and tile setting materials can contribute to multiple green building standards and certification systems. And these synergies help manufacturers and project teams narrow down the number of product certifications that are required. So examples include Living Building Challenge. They have a credit called Healthy Interior Environment. It addresses the same issues that are found in LEED's Low Emitting Materials credit or Fitwell's Indoor Air Quality Policy or the WELL Building Standards VOC Reduction credit. So it's good there's synergies throughout. Using LEED building certification as an example, it's also important to note that building projects receive LEED certification based on the number of points achieved. Products cannot be LEED certified. There is no such thing as a LEED product. There is not a single manufacturer that can make this claim. Green products contribute to LEED certification, but selecting green products doesn't automatically allow the project team to achieve LEED certification. There are also no LEED certified people. There are accredited professionals, green associates, and fellows based on their experience in the exams taken. Similar rules apply for Living Building Challenge, the WELL Building Standard, and other standards that I briefly mentioned. So we just quickly talked about green building certifications. Now we'll talk about green product certifications. There are a lot here, but these are just a few of the green product certifications or attributes that a single product can have. There are an estimated 600 green product certifications around the world and 100 in just the US. Sustainable attributes of a product advise project teams that a product has met a standard and offers either environmental or health benefits. They also eliminate greenwashing. Greenwashing is misleading or unsubstantiated claims about environmental and health benefits of a product. Many of these attributes contribute to several environmental parameters, such as extraction of raw materials, manufacturing process, and end of product life management, making them sustainable or multi-attribute sustainable certifications. Others focus on a single attribute with specific parameters such as recycled content or VOC emissions. Some require third-party certification while others do not. Green products with third-party certification are considered the most valuable among green building standards and certification systems. Third-party certification means a product has been independently verified as meeting environmental and/or health standards. They offer assurance to architects, designers, specifiers, and consumers that a product's claims reflect its sustainable attribute. So as a result, as the demand for products with sustainable attributes in the building environment continue to increase, so do the number of green product certifications. So how do these apply to tile and tile setting materials? As we just saw, there are a wide range of green product certifications or attributes that have been developed for building products. So where do you begin? Tile and tile setting materials may have the following sustainable attributes, and in the next section, we'll break this down and explain how they apply to the industry. These are certifications or attributes that we'll talk about next that have environmental impacts, and we'll talk about these now. So the first is EPDs, or Environmental Product Declarations. EPDs are created by performing an LCA, or a life cycle assessment, to assess the environmental impacts related to a product in a life cycle perspective. The LCA assessment identifies a product's environmental impacts throughout the product's life cycle, including raw material extraction, transportation, manufacturing, packaging, use, and disposal at end of life. An approach in which all phases of a product's life are taken into consideration is called cradle to grave. If the evaluation ends after the production phase, it's called cradle to gate. And this assessment identifies environmental impacts, including global warming potential, eutrophication, potential photochemical ozone. So all of the aforementioned analysis is being assessed to identify how a product impacts the environment, as you're seeing on the right there in those different areas. So all of the LCA analysis is summed up in a report, also known as an environmental product declaration. EPDs quantify a product or a material's impact on the environment from extraction of raw materials through the disposal of a product or material. Having an EPD does not imply that a declared product is environmentally superior to its alternatives. An EPD is simply a report of findings, and pursuing an EPD for products is voluntary. There are a few types of EPDs that you see there on the far left in the colorful cubes. Product-specific EPDs are a manufacturer's self-declared EPD that is publicly available, shows the LCA analysis, and shows it conforms with ISO 14000. And they have to have at least a cradle-to-gate scope. This type of EPD would not have undergone third-party verification. There's also an industry-wide or generic EPD. Products with this third-party verification, a manufacturer would be recognized as a participant in the program. So the image on the left, or the middle, is an example of an industry-wide EPD. TCNA, they have an industry-wide EPD for mortars, and they also have one for grout and for ceramic tile. And it's available for all participating manufacturers. You can kind of see there are participating manufacturers listed on the cover. So this means that the manufacturers that are listed here provided LCA data. All of that data was compiled, and an average LCA and then an EPD was created based on that, the average. There's also product-specific Type 3 EPDs, products with third-party verification in which the manufacturer is explicitly recognized as the participant. So the example on the right there shows a product or products specific to one manufacturer, in this case, Mupay. For projects pursuing LEED, these three types of EPDs have varying values for credit achievement calculations. There's also recycled content, which is a sustainable attribute you may be familiar with. Recycled content refers to the percentage of a material in a product that are diverted from waste streams. Products with recycled content reduce environmental impacts resulting from extraction and processing of virgin materials. Tile and tile setting materials typically incorporate pre- and post-consumer recycled content. Some manufacturers have recycled content of their products third-party verified, although it's currently not required. And that's pre-consumer and post-consumer. And again, this is an example of a recycled content third-party certification. Recycled content has significant environmental advantages, including reducing impacts resulting from extraction and processing of virgin materials. Some manufacturers do seek third-party verification or certification, but it's not typical for recycled content. Most manufacturers provide a letter stating pre- and post-consumer percentages. Extended producer responsibility, or EPR. This is another sustainable attribute or certification that is available. This requires companies to take responsibility for their impacts of their products, or for manufacturers to take responsibility for their impacts of their products. From materials used in manufacturing to product recycling after consumer use, there are reclamation programs that allow consumers to return tiles, at the end of their useful life. Some tile manufacturers practice EPR through take-back programs. Tile considered damaged, scrap, or otherwise waste is returned to participating manufacturers for recycling and reuse. These programs reduce burdens on landfill while minimizing the demand for raw materials. Oops, back up here. Oh, there we go. Crossbills is an example. They have a tile take-back program. They collect and recycle millions of pounds of fired post-consumer porcelain tile. They also expanded their program through a partnership with sanitary wares manufacturer Toto. So pre-consumer porcelain toilets and other cast-off products that would normally be discarded are now taken back through Crossbill's program. Many products travel significant distances before arriving at a project site. This is another sustainable attribute or certification. The impacts associated with transportation can be significant, including increased gas emissions. So it's best to select locally sourced products to support the use of indigenous resources and the local economy. Tile and tile setting manufacturers can provide manufacturing locations. This is an attribute that does not require third-party certification. There are products that are manufactured and extracted in the US. It can be difficult to achieve this attribute based on our product types. So LEED criteria, for example, states that product must be extracted and manufactured within a 100-mile radius of the project site. That can be pretty difficult to achieve. It's typically not common for tile and tile setting manufacturers to claim that all raw materials were sourced and manufactured within 100 miles of a project site, and that's okay. Not every green product attribute is achievable for all product types. That's where the challenge comes in for achieving various green building certifications. So now we'll move on into the health impacts that products can have. And there are certain certifications or attributes that focus on a product's impact on human health and well-being. VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, is one of the first. It's been around for a while, but various green building standards have since expanded on what's required for VOCs. It used to be you just had to provide a TDS or SDS or another different form of product data sheet showing a product's VOC content. But in addition to VOC content, VOC emissions are now another sustainable certification. And there are a few criteria for tile and tile setting materials. First, you should limit VOC content. Content is as simple as it sounds. The content of VOCs in a product. How much of the product is VOCs is basically what VOC content means. The content of VOCs in a product can vary. It's important to evaluate, select, and install building materials that minimize exposure to VOCs. There are regulations in place to limit VOCs in products. There's South Coast Air Quality Management District, or SQAMD. They have the most stringent VOC regulations in the US. A product's VOC content must be less than or equal to either South Coast Air Quality Management District Rule 1113 for paints and coatings, that includes floor coatings, or Rule 1168 for adhesives and sealants, and that includes flooring adhesives and sealants. All tile setting materials must meet this requirement. There is an exception for tile itself. LEED specifically defines products that are inherently non-emitting sources of VOCs. So stone, ceramic, powder-coated metals, plated or anodized metal, glass, concrete, clay brick, and unfinished or untreated solid wood flooring are considered fully compliant without VOC emissions testing if they do not include surface coatings, binders, or sealants. So ceramic tile And porcelain tile products have 0 VOC content, and they also meet the requirements of being inherently non-emitting, which means they don't have to go through third-party testing. But just because tile is considered inherently non-emitting does not mean that tile setting materials are. So lastly, VOC emission testing and certification are required for tile setting materials. VOC emissions differ from VOC content a little bit. VOC emissions is just the VOC content that evaporates into the air. VOC emissions are present in higher levels indoors. They primarily originate from building materials or products, and emissions determine what installers and final users are really breathing in. So manufacturers can voluntarily choose to have their products tested for emissions, and these building products must be tested and determined compliant in accordance with California Department of Public Health, or CDPH, at standard method, I think at 1.2 or greater. There are several third-party testing and certifying bodies that provide VOC emission certification. You may have been asked, or you may have asked a manufacturer to provide UL Green Guard Gold, or Floor Score, or CRI Green Label Plus, or SCS Indoor Advantage Gold. Berkeley Analytical also does a compliance test. And what they're asking for there is to show proof that a manufacturer's product has gone through VOC emissions testing or certification. And this is what's required for green building programs. We're also seeing a lot of do-it-yourselfers that are also asking for this because they have concerns for themselves or their families about what they're breathing in. So again, this example of VOC content that's found on a TDS on the left, and third-party VOC emission certification that you would gather as part of documentation for projects pursuing green building certification. So highlighted on the right shows that it's in compliance with California Department of Health, or CDPH. When talking to sustainability-minded customers, they use the word transparency a lot. They want to know what's in a manufacturer's product and how it will impact the environment and/or building occupants. Material ingredients and the demand for transparency started with the formation of the Living Building Challenge, the Well Building Standard, and previous green building certifications implementing health-related credits. We demand to know what's in our food, so why not demand to know what's in our building products? Similarly, sharing environmental product declarations in the form of an EPD, as we talked about earlier, or an environmental product declaration, is also a form of transparency. Material ingredient disclosure is another green product certification or attribute. Material ingredient disclosure focuses on negative effects that building materials have on human health and wellness. Currently, regulations do not require manufacturers or their suppliers to disclose product information beyond the safety data sheets. However, manufacturers may offer disclosures of their product's ingredients. There are several reports or declarations that provide chemical ingredient disclosure information, including manufacturer's inventory, or an MI. There's health product declarations, or HPDs, cradle to cradle material health certificate, declare labels, UL product lens, and many more. They've recently added to the amount of green material ingredient reporting documents that are available in addition to this list. Here is an example of a manufacturer inventory that you would gather as part of documentation, or an HPD, or a declare label. There's so many different material ingredient reports available. A manufacturer, or an MI in this case, similar to a nutrition label, lists the product's ingredients. The International Living Future Institute, or ILFI, developed a red list of chemicals that may not be included in materials used in construction that seeks to meet the criteria of Living Building Challenge projects. According to ILFI, the list is composed of materials that should be phased out of production due to health concerns. The list is updated as new science emerges. Tile and tile setting materials can contribute to red list free products. And here is an example of a red list letter that you would gather as part of documentation, most likely if your project is pursuing Living Building Challenge project. The letter confirms that product's ingredients have been reviewed and confirm whether or not the product contains red list ingredients or not. There's also green product certifications, yet another one, that have both environmental and health attributes. Green Squared certification is the tile industry's first multi-attribute sustainability certification. The certification looks at a product's environmental, social, and health impacts. Green Squared certification provides authenticity that manufacturers have met the criteria in all categories, including environmental product characteristics, environmental product manufacturing and raw material extraction, end-of-life product management, progressive corporate governance, and being innovative or going above and beyond what's requested in this standard. A certification was developed by Tile Council of North America to recognize tile and tile setting materials that are in conformance with ANSI A138.1. It's a sustainability product standard, and it's also third-party certified. And here's an example of a Green Squared certification that you would gather as part of documentation. So that was a lot of green product certifications and attributes that a single product can have. We just talked about all of these very quickly. These all apply to tile and tile setting materials. These green product certifications or attributes would be different for concrete mix, or different from millwork, or different from drywall. These are specific green product certifications or attributes that tile and tile setting materials can have. Will every product have these? No, and they're not required to. These certifications and attributes are not prerequisites. So that means they're not required to be eligible for green product certifications. However, green building certifications. However, the more green product certifications or green attributes, the merrier the project team. So depending on what green building standard or certification system that the project is pursuing, some of these attributes may be more important than others. So for example, a project pursuing LEED certification may want to find a product that has all or most of these, while a project pursuing the well building standard may want to find a product that has VOC emission certification and material ingredient reporting. As I mentioned earlier, contractors and installers are in a position to influence how green or how sustainable a project can be. If contractors are working on a green building project, they have an even bigger role, as contractors are typically the ones who order materials for a project. Using the right materials could be the difference between getting green building certification or not. Selecting products with sustainable attributes requires research and critical evaluation. There's a wealth of sustainable information available and continues to be developed pertaining to tile and tile setting materials. And the key is to start with the project team. Ask the project team questions. Will the project be pursuing a green building certification? What credits is the project pursuing? Are there specifications? Do the specifications have sustainability language? Those are all questions that should be asked as early as possible within the certification or the construction process. If there are sustainable specifications or sustainability requests, it's important to identify the green building certification being pursued and communicate that to the manufacturers when you're reaching out. after which the project team should educate themselves on sustainable attributes that are needed to meet the certification system's goals and find products that meet those requirements. So reviewing specifications is a great place to start. 018113 is a sustainable design requirement specification, and it'll notify you as to which green building certification the project team is pursuing, hopefully. Your spec section is also a great starting point. So in this example here, 093000, it further details the attributes or certifications the product should have. Using this example that you're seeing here with the specifications, the sustainability language has the following information. So they're telling you what green building certification program the project is pursuing. In this case, the project is targeting LEED V4 or version 4. They're pursuing gold, as well as the well building standard. They're pursuing gold as well. So as we talked about earlier, it's important to make sure that we're selecting materials that meet both of these green building standards requirements. They're also referring to 018113 sustainable design requirements for additional information. They're asking for backup documentation for all sustainable claims. So that's where the green product certifications or green attributes come into play. And then starting in section B on the middle image there, they're asking for products with recycled content. Section 2 is missing from this example. So starting in section 3, they're asking for VOC content and VOC emissions to meet various SQUAMID rulings and testing per California Department of Health or CDPH. They're asking for environmental product declarations and material ingredient reports. And those are all attributes or certifications that we just talked about. So in this example here, they're looking for products with at least 4 sustainable attributes certifications. And now you have to find manufacturers that have these or have as many of these attributes or certifications as applicable. Architects or specifiers tend to list all sustainable attributes or certifications in hopes that there's at least one manufacturer out there that can meet all of the requirements. Will every product meet these specifications? Probably not. So it's best to work with the project team and the manufacturers to find the best product or products for the project, or find alternatives where applicable. To help project teams achieve green building certification, there are helpful reporting forms that you may be familiar with. This is a LEED submittal cover sheet. Typically, the architect provides this or a similar form to the GC to have all of the subs fill these out, and that typically means that the subs send this to their manufacturers to fill out. On sustainability projects, all products or materials must be provided on these forms. And it's not as simple as providing one product and calling it a day, like I did here in this example. If you use 10 different tile types and 10 different ceramic tile adhesives, you should have 20 line items. They're filled out and they're sent back to the project team, typically a lead project administrator in this case, since it's a lead reporting form. And all of this information is assembled into one form, and all of the documentation that is provided, depending on how many different attributes or certifications that the product has, all of that gets assembled and it's submitted to LEED, in this case, for review to make sure that all of the products have been included. Sustainability product reports are another way of finding this information. So ask your manufacturers. Typically required documentation, including certifications, labels, resources, a list of sustainable products, and applicable green building standards and certification systems that their products contribute to, can be found on a manufacturer's site. They would have the most information on product certifications, testing, etc. They would also have all of the documentation that you need for your backup documentation. So when should you ask your manufacturers? The earlier the better. Manufacturers can help with product certifications or find alternatives if the product selected does not comply with selected green building certification. Do not assume that every product meets every green building certification program, as we saw earlier. Products can have up to 7 or even 8 sustainable attributes or certifications. So the project team may ask for 1 green product certification, not knowing that there are others. So manufacturers can share all of their sustainable attributes or certifications if you reach out. There are also free online product databases such as Mindful Materials. It's a library for project teams to select products that meet their project's sustainability goals, or other libraries that include EPDs, sustainable mines, etc. There are many free sustainable product libraries available. There are also individual third-party certifications, including CRI Green Label Plus, SCS Indoor Advantage Gold, and UL Spot. They also have databases for the sustainable attributes or certifications that they certify. But on these free sustainable product libraries, there are advanced search options that you can filter by certification, environmental characteristics, product criteria, etc. These help project teams quickly find and compare products that will help them achieve their sustainability goals. You can also pull all documentation that you need per specification on these libraries. The process of selecting, specifying, and collecting documentation for products pursuing green building standards and certification systems can be time and budget consuming. However, industry-leading manufacturers understand that third-party certification is becoming increasingly important as sustainable construction continues to be the norm rather than the exception. So as new and more stringent requirements continue to be introduced in sustainable construction, project teams can expect to see continued progress in advancing sustainable products and their availability being shared publicly. Well, thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or you can email me or Repay's sustainability team for more information.
Brittany, that was very informational and a lot there to think about. I wanted to ask a quick question. So I had never heard of the red list, and do a lot of companies provide a red list? Do they provide it for all the materials? It's new to me, so I'm just wondering how often do you see the red list?
Quite a bit. I would say it's mainly for projects pursuing Living Building Challenge, but we do get requests because people are just concerned with what's in a product or don't want to use chemicals that are on a red list. We do see requests quite a bit on that. We do not, Repay does not publicly disclose our red list letters. That being said, we do provide them if they're requested. The reason we do not publicly disclose them on our website, for example, or on other product libraries is because the red list changes so frequently that we wouldn't want the wrong list to be available online, because sometimes a product ingredient may have a red list and then it may not in the next round of red list chemicals, or vice versa. So we try to make our red list letters specific to a product, specific to the project, and specific to the version of Living Building Challenge that projects are pursuing, because again, the list of red list changes so frequently that we want to make sure that we're checking that our ingredients are in compliance with with the version of living building that the project team is pursuing.
So request the red list is how you find out, for each project. Is that what you would suggest?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we do have a question here. Is there a magical combination of certifications that you would recommend pursuing?
It depends on what green building certification you're pursuing. In all cases, so whether you're pursuing LEED or WELL or Living Building Challenge, VOC emissions certification, the third-party VOC emissions certification that shows compliance with California Department of Health or CDPH, that is a certification that's requested on every green building standard. So that's a great starting point. And then anything after that, so the environmental product declarations, those are used more so on LEED projects than WELL, for example. Recycled content, again, more of the environmental attributes or certifications apply more towards LEED projects, where more of the health-related certifications would go towards well building standards. So it really depends on what you're pursuing that you should start tracking or gathering for documentation.
Great. So you put your email address and your information on the screen on here. I want everyone to jot that down. And if you do have questions, Brittany has told me she'd be willing to answer any questions and try and help you in any way. So please take the time to jot down Brittany Storm, bstorm@mapei.com. Very simple email. Brittany, that was very informative and a lot to think about and somewhat confusing to me. Even though I've been looking at these for years and following them, they're still very confusing. And but I love that that we're doing this sustainability and thinking of wellness and health and all of that. So I thank you for your time. I want to thank all the attendees for attending today, and just let you know we'll have one more webinar before Thanksgiving on Tuesday, the 23rd of November. Please look for your invite. Again, thank you all for attending, taking the time out of your day, and Brittany, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.